This type of question, where we have exponential expressions with two or more terms, are probably one of the most popular type of questions for exponents. Now you will see how we can simplify these exponential expressions using something as diverse as factoring techniques. Now study the following examples and make sure to store the techniques that you acquire somewhere in the back of your mind for when you are working with exponential expressions, either when there are plus and minus signs between them, or when they are in a fraction, or both. Now the first example that we will look at is 7 to the power of x plus 7 to the power of x plus 1. Now remember that 7 to the power of x plus 1, as you can see there, can be written as 7 to the power of x times by 7 to the power of 1, which is simply the first law in reverse. Because if that is what you were given, you would have been able to write it as 7 to the power of x plus 1. You add the exponents according to the first law if you multiply the same basis. Now what we're doing is to take that expression and write it in reverse. So it becomes 7 to the power of x plus 7 to the power of x times by 7 to the power of 1, and then we take out that 7 to the power of x as a common factor in that expression, which leaves us with 1 plus 7, which is 8. So the whole expression just becomes 8 times 7 to the power of x. Second one is a bit more complicated. We've got 4 times 2 to the power of x minus 7 times 2 to the power of x plus 2. Now the 4 times 2 to the power of x we can leave as is. A 7 we can leave as is, but the 2 to the power of x plus 2, again we write in the first law in reverse, becomes 2 to the power of x times by 2 to the power of 2. And then, since we have in that first term 2 to the power of x there, and in the second term we have 2 to the power of x there, we can take that out as a common factor, and what remains is the 4 minus 7 times by 2 to the power of 2, which is actually 4, and 7 times 4 is 28, which becomes that line there. After we've taken out the common factor, 4 minus 28 is minus 24, so the answer to that expression is minus 24 times by 2 to the power of 2x. Now if you have noticed how this technique of the common factor and the first law in reverse can help you to simplify expressions when there is more than one term, the following exercises will be fairly easy. If you are not sure, rather spend more time with the preceding section until you understand exactly what was done. It is very important. So rather go back to those two examples, understand exactly what we mean with the first law in reverse and what we mean with the common factor before you proceed. So assuming that you do understand, let's go on to some examples. We are given 2 to the power of n minus 2 to the power of n plus 1 divided by 2 to the power of n. So on top of the line, in the numerator, we write that expression as 2 to the power of n plus 1 like that. Using again the first law in reverse, it becomes 2 to the power of n times by 2 to the power of 1. Take out 2 to the power of n on top in the numerator as a common denominator, and then we'll have 1 minus 2 left in the bracket. But what is very important is the fact that it cancels out. That 2 to the power of n cancels out with the 2 to the power of n below the line, and we are simply left with 1 minus 2, which is minus 1. For the other example, number 2, we've got a to the power of 2x minus a to the power of x over ax. Now remember, a to the power of 2x can be written as a to the power of x times by a to the power of x, which means we can take out a to the power of x as a common factor, which is written for us there, and what is left in the brackets will be a to the power of x minus 1, but then that term and that term can cancel, and we are simply left with a to the power of x minus 1. Now there are many more examples of this type of question. It will be impossible to cover all of them in one single video recording, but the techniques will remain fairly consistent and the same, as long as you remember when your expression has pluses or minuses in them, such as there's a minus, there was a minus. In the preceding examples we had a minus there was a plus. As soon as you get pluses or minuses, remember the common factor. If you don't have pluses or minuses, that step basically falls away, but you've still got to remember the first law in reverse. That's very important for you to remember at all times.